The views, thoughts, and opinions expressed in the podcast belong solely to the hosts and not the host's past, present, or future employers. Hello, everybody. Welcome back. This is Brian for Breaking Down Security. Part 2 of our discussion with Roberto Rodriguez is about to happen. I will spare you all of the fun times that we've had here. It's been a busy week at BrakeSec World Headquarters here in Seattle. Keep an eye out for our Twitter feeds, BrakeSec, as well as InfoSec Campout. We're going to have some information on our conference, which is going to be coming up at the end of August. We've mentioned it a few times, InfoSec Campout, August 28th and 29th. Hoping in the next few days here we'll have our tickets up on Eventbrite, as well as call for papers, call for workshops, and what have you. It's going to be a great time. We already have a handshake agreement with Ms. Berlin to do her InfoSec Detect and Defense, D&D, Defense and Detection workshop, but we're always looking for other interesting workshops as well, and our call for papers. We're still trying to figure out some logistics on that. We'd like to showcase local talent if at all possible, but we will entertain folks from outside of the Pacific Northwest region. We're still a small conference, so please keep that in mind. We'll brief everybody later on that issue. So, I don't know anything personally about data science. I've not even stayed at Holiday Inn Express, so I couldn't even tell you what it's all about. So during our discussion, it came up about Jupyter Notebooks, which is what Roberto Rodriguez uses to do threat hunting. So we're going to take it right into the part of the show where I asked what a Jupyter Notebook is. So I hope everybody has a great week, and on with the show.
Yeah, no, definitely. So Jupyter Notebooks, think about it as a document that you can access through your browser, right? Through a website, through a web interface. This specific document would allow you to first is language agnostics, so programming language agnostics. So if you're familiar with Python, you can do data analysis with Python. If you're familiar with R, Java, Scala, any other language that you can use for data analysis, you can use it on a notebook. A notebook allows you to save the input. So if you're typing, let's say, some markdown, or you're typing some queries as well, it will be saved on the notebook. It's just a document. And if you run that query against a database, so once again, a notebook, it's also database agnostic, because you can connect to, for example, just an Elasticsearch database. You can connect to a Splunk database, connect to a Sentinel from Microsoft, from Azure, SIEMs, for example. You can just connect to any data set, an S3 bucket, anywhere, right? Where the data resides, you can actually point to a data set, get the data, analyze it, and the output that you receive can be also saved on the notebook. So at the end of the day, pretty much, you have a document that would allow you to create first some static, for example, wiki where you can start documenting detections and analytics and all that. But at the same time, it can be an interactive document that if you host it in a Jupyter Notebook server, you will be able to run all these specific cells. For example, one cell could be a title, description, analytic, output. So you can pretty much run through the whole document. Now, why is that so important as well, besides those cool features of saving visualizations? Anything that tells you about the research, the story behind the detection, is that you can actually start performing additional analysis from the specific document as well. Something that I like to do, for example, that I haven't seen in too many other analytics frameworks, is that you can actually start bringing data sources from different places. And as long as you can put them in the right format, you can start querying that data, and you can start doing some extra experimentation. Notebooks are not new, are new to the cybersecurity community, to the InfoSec community, but notebooks have been used for years for the data science community. So anything related to analyzing data from a basic Boolean A and B or C type of query to a SQLite, to a basic statistical model, all the way to like machine learning models, for example, are done. I would say most of the open research that I've seen in Jupyter Notebook. So that's the power of this like document that allows you to take your also data analysis level, analysis skills to the next level if you are capable to do it with the tools in there. Yep, and you can import any libraries that you have in Python, for example. So you can bring a lot of tools to this awesome technology, which is a Jupyter Notebook.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, and I actually there's a link in the show notes to like Jupyter Notebook Beginner's Guide for the stupid people in the in.
Yeah, I've already read a couple of the pages.
I'm the stupid people, so don't get offended out there if you're like I don't know what that is either. I'm the guy who's like I've heard of it, I just don't know what I would ever do with it. So
like we don't have any visualizations yet with the stuff that we're doing, and going from like another sim that I've worked on previously that has amazing visualizations to something that doesn't, and it's like looking into the matrix when you're trying to find. Does it rhyme
with funk? Yeah. Does it rhyme with funk?
It may.
Okay, just checking.
That's actually one of the, I would say, the awesome capabilities that if you, for example, even if you write your own library or you import some existing visualization libraries, you can just use them in there, and it's amazing. You can just do anything in there, visualizations, anything, and you can save them. And the good thing is you can save the status of your document, and you can share it like that. So you can actually tell the story without running all the queries again, which is beautiful. I mean, like I've been working with a lot of analytics frameworks, a lot of sims, and sometimes you run the query and you have to save it, take a picture of that, and then share it in the Slack and be like, hey, I found this. With Jupyter Notebook, you can just save the whole notebook, and then you can open it and it will be the same. And I think that that's also why for researchers or for data analysts is also a cool thing to have as well.
Okay.
To work with.
And I'm looking at the Hunter's Forge, which is your GitHub and the Threat Hunter playbook. You're mapping the one reason I was like, oh, Miss Berlin will be a fan of this is you're following the MITRE attack structure for. Was there a reason why you decided to go with MITRE, or is it just that's the new hotness right now?
Oh, no. Yeah, so I decided to do it with attack was because, in my opinion, is one of the best resources out there that would allow me to talk to somebody about some specific techniques, tactics, all the way to the procedures level. That's one of the only reasons. Like I think it was very practical to use to start sharing with anybody else. At the same time, a couple companies that I was working they were using it for everything, for the red team reports as well. And it was easier just to start speaking the same language. And the team behind it is awesome as well. So it was easier to ask a lot of questions like, where do I fit this in this specific technique? Some of the issues that a lot of users, I believe, also might have into, oh, this doesn't have a technique yet. And it was easy to talk to the community as well, the attack community, and also make it happen into, add a new technique or add a new procedure as well. So that's one of the reasons why. And it was easier to map everything that I was doing. So
it's the most comprehensive one out there, I think. I mean, yes, definitely. Mm-hmm. Yep. Unless there's one internally that somebody has, it's definitely the
I'm pretty sure there's a lot of internal.
I'm sure. Not nearly as good. They probably took attack and just added to it.
Yes, I remember working before with someone that says, I don't like attack, but I will build my own. And once they were building it, it's like that's exactly attack. No, but it's like that's exactly attack. So yeah, I've seen that before.
Yeah, because as right when attack started out, like I didn't know that it was a thing, and it was before they had the whole site and everything. They just had like the simple
yes,
like the first version of it, right? And I was doing the same thing, but tying everything to the kill chain. And I'm like, oh man, shit, I'm done with that. This is so much better. There's way more people working on it, so I'm just gonna kind of abandoned that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it had a
project.
quick adoption by a lot of people. It spread quick.
It's
Yeah,
probably
then,
it's probably because we had it on the show back in like 2015, 2016.
Oh, very
nice.
So
That's completely what it was. Yep.
don't patronize me, Ms. Berlin. I heard that. Sounds like my mom when you talk like that. Anyway, no, I'm just kidding. Yeah. So I'm looking at your blog post on Medium about Thread Hunter's Forge, and you're using Jupyter notebooks. You're also using a lot of Docker. Why are you using Docker if a lot of the attack IOCs and stuff are found in, you have a lot of Windows stuff and you're still working on the Linux and the Mac stuff. So how does Docker help you make a better, threat hunter playbook?
Yep. So Docker in the 300 playbook. Well, first, it's very easy to share the specific environments that I'm working with. So if I just pack everything on a Docker image, very easy just to share it. Somebody just have to download it, run it. It's very easy to do. But from a 300 playbook perspective, Docker is used to deploy the, I would say, Jupyter notebook servers. So that's, I would say, the only capability that it's given to the project, the 300 playbook, the Docker images that get, with the project. And I think that's very easy to deploy this environment in the cloud, because once again, the 300 playbook comes with these notebooks that they need to be executed somewhere. And if you do not know, of course, right, how to build your own Jupyter notebook server, which is one of the big obstacles for a lot of people to even try to adopt Jupyter notebooks. The project itself has every notebook, as you can see if you go to the site, the 300playbook.com. Every notebook has a link on the top that says binder, and that allows you to deploy a Jupyter notebook server with the notebook itself that you can run it in the cloud for free. And so that's what the Docker images are in this specific use case. They're just to build the servers, and they're already pre-packed with all the libraries that you need. Now, the good thing about, to answer the question into how dangerous it could be, is that the project binder itself, which is the one that builds the open cloud infrastructure for you to use it with Jupyter notebooks, they actually have a lot of security rules on this Kubernetes cluster. And they actually block a lot of, I would say, connections to through specific ports and all that. So it had some additional security on the top that it's actually taken care of by another team that work in the Barclays Institute or University. So they're doing all this research about deploying this Jupyter notebook infrastructure in the cloud. And I use it for cybersecurity. They make it available for data scientists, and I just took that idea and pushed it for InfoSec. Okay. But they take care of some of the security on the top of that. Yeah.
Nice. Okay. What's the upkeep and maintenance like for this system? Because it sounds like not only do you have to have a SIM to aggregate all your logs and do all this stuff, but you also have to have a your Docker environment has to be cloud-based. I mean, there seems like there's a lot of moving parts here. How does an organization who may want to start doing this or to work through the whole process of this get established?
Yes, that's a great question. So the 300 playbook is started first as a research project first, but it does not mean that companies can take the idea of using Jupyter notebooks in the cloud using the binder project, which is what the 300 playbook uses in order to build the infrastructure in the cloud. The 300 playbook approach through binder does not require directly a SIM, for example, because it uses pre-recorded data sets in order to validate the detections that are being shared through a 300 playbook. But the companies will have to, if they build their own SIMs, which most of them have, all they have to do is just use the binder infrastructure, which is also open source. They can build it on their own. It's very easy to deploy. They have a lot of good instructions. The mybinder.org is one of the public binder builds that they offer to the community, and all they have to do is have the right library to connect to their SIMs or databases to collect the data and analyze it. So I think that the same type of, I would say, maintenance that they do to their SIMs, they will keep doing the same, but the 300 playbook, it's like a different project that sits on the top of any other database that might be out there that you want to query data from Jupyter Notebooks from. So I would say that there is not much maintenance on the 300 playbook side because it's all automated through Binder. People will still have to do their own, maintenance on their sims and all that, which is something that 300 playbook does not share or do or anything on the top of the project. So, yep.
Do you happen to give training on this kind of stuff? Because I could use a day-long class on just how to understand all the technology underlying. Because, like I said, I'm freaking old and I don't get this shit.
So no, definitely. So I'm planning on doing some training. I'm actually writing a couple of things already, and I will see if the community gets very excited about it. I'm planning on doing some training on this specifically, like Jupyter Notebooks being used for research and how they can deploy things on the cloud. I'm planning on doing that. At the same time, I'm doing a couple of, hopefully soon, a kind of like Twitch account and just kind of share a lot of stuff with the community. That's something that is coming soon. Something that we didn't talk about it before this podcast, but I was definitely going to share in the future. New initiative that is going to be it's new, so I think only a few people know, but it's kind of like more helping the community with open source stuff and sharing a lot of these things in a short period of time, like an hour, half hour type of Twitch event, and just talk about it with the community, all for free, of course. But the training, which is a longer training, that's something that will be awesome to see how the community responds. But planning on doing that for sure in the future.
Okay.
And a couple of initiatives coming soon, hopefully in the next couple of weeks.
Okay, cool. Yeah, don't worry about disclosing that here. Nobody listens to the show. It's all good.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of red team things that do that, right? So there's like the Metasploit Minute and that kind of stuff. It'd be nice to have the blue team side. Yeah,
right.
That would be awesome. Definitely doing that soon. For sure, I'm definitely going to share that. Hopefully we can do a second podcast about that, and we can talk about it.
Great. Awesome. Yeah.
Really, really happy to share that.
So, we got a little time left here. I wanted to go through, you actually put one of the playbooks in the show notes. So if anybody's like, well, I don't know what the hell a playbook looks like, let's go. So there's a link in the show notes to a YAML file, which I thought YAML was a different format. It was for like, I don't know. There was some other system I thought that used YAML files, but maybe I'm.
There's a lot of things that use YAML.
Thank you for that. Oh God. Okay.
This is why I'm here.
She's just like, oh, you poor man. Yeah. Anyway, so let's go through the format. I'm assuming is this an established format, or is this one you've decided on that works well, or
Yeah. So this is a format that I decided to go with. I got some initial feedback from the community, not a lot of people, and I think that the idea is how to make it even easier to follow. But those actually steps on the YAML file with the specific sections are necessarily just trying to document some of that metadata that you will be writing down when you start doing your research and want to share it with somebody else. So we can go through the format itself, but I think that the main parts is, of course, having a title, having a goal, such as your hypothesis, description of the hypothesis a little bit, understanding the technology behind the specific technique being used by an adversary, and then trying to have some type of validation, right? Because we all share these rules, but how do you validate that the rule actually will trigger? So there is where I connect the 300 playbook with the Mordor project, which once again is a repo of a lot of data sets that were created after emulating or simulating an adversary technique. And then after that, we start going through the specific analytics being shared. And I like to start going like first to third analytic. And as I go down, I like to increase a little bit of the complexity of the analytic. And I think that actually tells you about the research steps that one is taking to get to the final analytic, or trying to at least explain why some analytics might have high false positive or just a lot of high event output, and some other ones that might have a low event output, and try to explain why. And I think that that's pretty much how I do my research. I want to start sharing stuff and telling people, hey, this query, it's awesome, but it just gives you a lot of output. So you have to either correlate it with another data set, or you have to apply your internal enterprise expertise knowledge and see if you can just filter out a lot of things. And then at the end, I have some Sigma rules also. And I think we talked about a little bit with the Sigma project, but the Sigma rule in there tells you, for example, in this specific notebook that you have in the notes, have like 3-4 analytics, and I give one Sigma rule. And that's telling you that the Sigma rule, I can express my first basic query or some of the queries that might be useful for this notebook or detection playbook, and can be expressed. I can actually share a Sigma rule, but I cannot share a Sigma rule when I start getting into joins and all those things. So that's also to tell the community that I support the project, makes sense, but there is also some extra research that is being done on the top that might not be easy to express at some point. So that's also something that definitely we talk to the Sigma team and tell them, this is some of the limitations as well. But the notebook itself shares the steps all the way from the title all the way to specific rules being shared for the detection. Yep.
Okay. So you've got here attack coverage. You have a technique. In this case, the technique is mapped to a specific part of the attack matrix, or is this?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Cool.
Yep.
And you have techniques and tactics. Okay, great. One of the things that caught me was you have different analytics names and false positives. And
I like that part.
It goes down a lot further. So, why do you believe it's a medium versus a low or a high?
So, I would say, for example, in that specific notebook, if I go to the first one, analytic number 1. It talks about looking for any processes that are executed by non-system accounts, but the processes have WMI PRVSE as a parent, for example. And when I run this, so if I look in any SIM, parent WMI PRVSE, and show me all the child processes, some environments actually have, I'm going to be honest with you, none. I don't know if that's because of telemetry. There is actually not events actually showing up. Some environments might have 50, 60, of course, depending on the number of hosts. But I can see that this is not an analytic that will give you hundreds and thousands of events, like thousands and thousands. It might give you probably 50, a couple hundred, maybe, depends on the specific environment. But I've seen more of those, a couple hundred, 50 around those numbers, not a crazy number. So for me, that's a medium type of potential false positives that are out there, because you have to go deeper, understand why this child process was executed from WMI PRVSE. And I think that that's pretty much when I started going to this, ways to show the medium, low, and high. If you go to the analytic number 3, for example, in this specific document, that analytic, when I started joining the first analytic that I just talked about, and I joined that with the same user in the same user logon session of the child process of WMI PRVSE. If that session, it's pretty much mapped to a network logon session, which is in logon type 3. When you authenticate from a box to box, the destination box pretty much documents that someone authenticated to my box, and this is a network logon session. Let's say the username is, I'm going to use my doc's name because I use it everywhere on my presentations, Pedro. So Pedro authenticated from computer A to computer B. And after Pedro authenticated with this network logon session, then the same session with the user showed up as a child process of WMI PRVSE. That's actually additional context that would tell me this specific process that WMI PRVSE is launching is actually part of a network authentication event. So that would map my detection of WMI for lateral movement. But that specific combination, I have not seen in a lot of environments. So that's something that I could tell you it does not happen all the time, or once again, hundreds and thousands of events. So that's kind of like a low type of false positive potentially in an environment. So that's how I go about these specific fields. Adding more context to the initial rule would definitely tell me more about the level of output that I get. And most of the time with that third one is low. So.
Okay. Would you, do you plan on having more fields added to this? I mean, would it be like having CVE numbers attached to some of these things, or like, specific name of something like shell shock, for instance, or, MS 1710 or something like that? Is there a way for somebody to have those in there, or would that be in like the description talking about the types of vulnerabilities those are?
Yeah. That's a good question. I think that's something that I'm doing already in some other projects where I use YAML as well, is to add the metadata field that if you want to add more metadata, I can actually, parse it when I push this YAML file to a notebook format. Because the YAML file right here is used to create the notebook later and then present it in the website as an HTML file. So yes, I'm actually planning on adding this like metadata field, so people can add more fields to it as they go, because at the same time, if I start creating main fields for everything, then it just creates this massive YAML file. So I'm trying to give the flexibility to the user to add as many fields as they want to in there. Yep.
Okay, and you said this is database agnostic, so I could put it in a SQLite all the way up to an Oracle database?
Yeah, so the notebook itself, right, it would just be showing up in your notebook server, but then you can connect to any other database. That's what I meant with database agnostic, that you can collect data from any database that allows you to have let's say, Python client collecting data from any other database out there.
Okay.
Very
nice.
Yep. So
let me see, what else do we have to discuss? Somebody put a question down there at the bottom about attack. Who put the
no, I was just wondering if you're just continuing to write different playbooks for different stuff, and like, do you have a process of how you went about picking the ones that you have already?
Yes. Yeah, so I decided to start working with with offensive security tools, the OST conversations in Twitter. I decided to go with anything that I find on public open C2 frameworks out there, and I think that also allows me to start working with what not most of the time, but I've seen a lot of adversaries are there just taking these C2 frameworks and using them. So that's my process. I try to cover as many C2 frameworks as possible. One of the things that you will see on the Mordor project, not on the 300 playbook project, but on the Mordor project, I have a lot of data sets from Empire and from Covenant, and also I have data sets from Caldera, from from the MITRE attack team as well, or the MITRE team. So I go about C2 frameworks that are public already out there. That's how I go and start doing one by one. Yep.
Okay. I noticed that there was one thing in the YAML. I don't know if this is something that should be in there, but is defense. So, I mean, you're detecting everything, but there's no discussion on how to defend against it, or like, oh, congratulations, for instance, WMI is being used and, somebody's invaded your site. How do you fix that? There's no defensive section in there.
Yes, definitely. So that's a great question, actually, because there is a couple of people that mentioned some of that, where how do we connect for example, my instant response playbooks? How do I connect my configurations that I'm also applying in order to protect from these techniques? That's something that I was thinking on adding as the metadata field to allow somebody to also plug this format to whatever they're building. I believe that I can do some additional research and start providing some of those mitigation capabilities as well. I have not done that yet. My initial focus was to do the research, tell you what data sets would show the telemetry that you will use for your analytics or for your rules themselves, and then how you can use them to detect the potential behavior. But I have not done the additional piece, which is more like either incident response or also mitigations as well.
Okay.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, it was a little garbled there. Was I the only one hearing that?
No.
Yeah, no, it just went all like you sound like a robot kind of.
Roboto.
Almost.
Yeah, it sounded
like sorry.
Yeah, you're still sounding like Roboto.
Can you guys hear me well now?
It's the same.
Try unplugging your mic and plugging it back in.
Let's see. Can you guys hear me?
Oh yeah, there you go. That's much better
now. Yeah, that was
okay. Cool.
Okay.
Should I repeat then the last part?
yeah. Maybe you could go back through that again and
yes.
Yeah, we'll.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No worries.
Yeah. So what I was saying is that the notebook itself allows you to document the research of how to go about how to create that specific analytical rule. But I have not done the additional research to show like response procedure or the mitigation step in order to tell somebody how to protect about specific techniques that I'm sharing in there. The idea also is to allow teams to probably have the additional people to do the research and just plug this detection notebook with their IR notebooks or other mitigation notebooks, or playbooks that they might have. Yep.
Okay. Very nice.
Yep.
Okay. That makes sense. I guess you also don't want to do anything like turning it into an IDS. You kind of just want to do one thing and do it well, and not try to be all things to all people. So that makes sense.
Yes, and also different people respond. They respond in a different way, and some people might have some other ways to configure, mitigate the stuff. And yes, that adds additional steps that with all these other open source projects, I'm like that will take an extra additional project to do that.
Yeah.
So
you have open source data sets. What so I'm an endpoint security solution company, and I'm like, wow, look at all this cool stuff he's done. I'm going to go ahead and just borrow that. Do you have a license or anything that keeps them from doing that, or as how are you keeping them from just suborning your work and taking it for their own?
Yeah, so I do have GPL3 for every project that I do. That pretty much says I'm doing this open source. If you take the work and you use it on your own, you have to also disclose it open source to everybody else. I don't know, some companies will follow that. I hope that they follow that. That's the only way that I'm just kind of like sharing my work and just hoping that people will do the same. So if you build something on the top of anything on the Hunter's Forge repo, I expect to be also released open source. Some companies have asked me to change the Datasets project to Apache 2. And I will have to do some research on that, what that actually means to the community as well.
Right.
But I'm open to talk more about it with companies that would like to do something with it. So
companies that want you to change your licensing scheme, you got to wonder why they're wanting that. It's not obviously for your benefit; it's for theirs. So, at least that would be my opinion, and that's coming from somebody who used to work, who worked at an endpoint security company. I'm just mean because So Miss Berlin, have you been duplicating a lot of what Roberto's been doing? And
a little.
Oh, I'm sorry. We could have gotten him on months ago.
Not everything. So like all of our rules are written in it's like I don't know if I can say that. Kind of like SQL.
Okay.
Nice.
It's BigQuery, so it's SQL-ish. Right?
Nice. Yep.
So yeah, like a lot of the stuff that are in those notebooks we already have written as detections. But yeah, those false positive rates are definitely depends on the environment. So we're up to like 30 customers or something like that now. And yeah, you definitely have to test against each one, because some of them have super clean environments and they're sending you lots of logs, and others have no idea what they're doing, and lots of false positives, lots of terrible things going on in their environment. Yeah, it's definitely interesting sitting at that side of it, because you don't have as much control of what's going on. But you do when the logs come in, right? So you can parse out all the fields that you want and all that kind of stuff. But that's something that I'm working on a lot, is like the attack part in the lab, to prove that my stuff works. So anything I can do to do less manual work is fantastic.
Yes. That's awesome.
So the attack matrix is rather large, and for some, does this work for all parts of the attack matrix, or are there some places where it just doesn't make sense? That was a question.
Wait, was that a question to me?
Either one.
Okay, I wasn't paying attention. My kid needed something.
So Roberto, I'll ask you, and then I'll ask Ms. Berlin again.
Sorry.
Yeah. So you're saying that if the attack matrix is not covering certain things that might not make sense, I guess, for the attack matrix?
Right. When you're threat hunting or using this format, is there some parts of the attack matrix where this can't work or this doesn't make sense? And if so, what are those things?
Yeah. So for example, so one of the things that, of course, for example, from the attack matrix perspective, there is a couple of techniques that are very broad. And in some of them, actually, you don't even have some coverage in there. So what I do is I just, give it a either random, technique ID. And then after that, I just start trying to understand how that would actually create either a new technique or might fall into a new tactic that, we don't know or doesn't make sense. And I just contribute back to the attack community. But there is actually something coming up for attack, which is called the attack sub-techniques. And I think that would actually go a little deeper into some procedures that actually might make sense to have their own sub-technique rather than, be part of this broad, technique on the attack matrix. So,
What's an example of a sub-technique? Maybe Miss Berlin can answer that one if she knows.
Example of a sub technique?
Yeah.
Yep. There is actually a blog post by the attack folks, and they have all that information there. Give me 1 second. I'll put it in the notes right now.
Oh wow! Apparently, it's been Googled enough that attack sub techniques are a thing that came up. Okay.
Yeah. Oh, here it is. Yeah, attack sub techniques preview. So I'll just share that in the notes real quick at the bottom.
Dude, I'm still just working on the regular ones.
Yeah. Sorry, you're going to have to start all over again, Miss Berlin. Sorry. Yeah.
There it is. So,
for example, just add on to them.
Oh, all right.
For example, they have one example in there. Actually, they have a table in this blog post that I shared in the notes. And for example, let's say they have one example in there which says the account manipulation. Yes, account manipulation is a persistent technique, and the sub-technique would be modifying permissions or modifying the account settings. So not the permissions themselves, but actually the accounts, settings themselves, not just the permissions. So I think that's kind of like the way how they're trying to do it. Credential dumping is another one, because you can pretty much get credentials from the security accounts manager database. You can get credentials from, cache credentials. Or from memory, for example, things like that. So I think that they're trying just to break it down into what actually would make sense to call a sub technique as well, and how to help people working with the techniques overall. So there is a table also, once again, in this blog post that I share in the notes, and you can see how they're trying to break it down, which is very interesting.
Yeah, I see that. Okay. So let's say I'm in a dev heavy environment and I want to use this because let's say, what was it? The recent sudo vulnerability came out that was a local privilege escalation because of a buffer overflow. How would you draft a threat hunt if somebody was, for misguided though they may be, they're trying to use the sudo attack as some kind of way of gaining privilege onto the environment? I mean, is it even possible for things like buffer overflows? Can you oh yeah, you need to search for buffer overflows. Well, that's easier said than done. Or, is it just looking at a version string going, okay, you don't have the right version of sudo, you're vulnerable?
Yeah, that's a good one. I mean, I haven't, I would say, done research on a buffer overflow type of technique, but I would assume that I would take a similar approach that I take with these techniques that I work on. First, I want to understand the technology behind this technique, how it's being implemented and all that, or the vulnerability being pretty much exposed and all that. And trying to find, of course, after I do the this layer approach to understand the technology from the high level overview of either a script being used or all the way to what the vulnerability actually look like, and then find the telemetry, telemetry surrounded this vulnerability on the system and see if there is any telemetry that I could use. And of course, not every technique like that one, for example, if there isn't a specific privilege escalation, not every technique will have the telemetry available, so we'll have to understand how to enable or complement that specific, technique. The escalation of a user, for example, that going from a regular user to, let's say, a system, that specific behavior, which probably is past the buffer overflow technique somehow, right? That specific behavior of one user to an elevated user, there is in Windows there is telemetry to tell you that there was a user that elevated. I assume in other systems will be similar telemetry, which will have not much to do with the vulnerability being exploited itself, but probably will give you telemetry around the behavior of a user going from a regular user to an elevated, most likely system user as well.
Okay,
that's how we'll go about it.
Okay. Does Mr. Betcher, Ms. Berlin have any other questions? I have one left, but I don't want to hog the time. So
I lost it.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I had it, but I lost it.
Okay. So as a person who hunts threats, it must get lonely sometimes, somewhat being out there by yourself. How would people who want to maybe help contribute to the project do so?
Oh, yes. So I'm in Twitter first. I'm actually, checking my Twitter a lot and trying to see some news and also post a lot of the stuff that I do in Twitter. GitHub also, like if you have a question about any project and also would love to collaborate, any GitHub issue would be awesome. Issues are also open to anything if you have a question. The other way is I do host a Slack channel. It's the threathunting.slack.com. I actually got that name when it came out. I was impressed that no one took the threathunting.slack.
Oh, sorry. We don't mention other Slacks on here, just our own. So I'm just kidding. No.
But there is actually a link that will get you to the free invitation, just directly invitation, and then you get a link just to access it.
Okay.
I'll put it in the notes right now, but that channel, I opened it because I started traveling a lot when I was doing consulting, and I was meeting amazing people. And that's one of the ways that I was keeping it to talk to everybody from different countries. And then I made it public. It was private for a long time. I was just keeping track of a lot of people. Now we have like close to 700 people around the world, not just the US. Nice. And I'm very excited because I think that people are finding the channel useful to ask any questions. Like, people from different levels of expertise, different backgrounds, and people that just want to talk. Like you're saying, some people are lonely doing hunting, and that happens to a lot of people, right?
Right.
I tend to stay up late also. And I have people from different countries that just go in Slack and go like, hey, good morning. I'm like, hey, good morning. It's like 2 a.m. in here, but good morning over there. And It's amazing. It's amazing to talk to people from around the world that have the same kind of interests and people that want to share with the community. But I'll share that in the notes as well, the invitation channel link.
Okay.
Yep.
Sounds great. Okay. Yeah. Appreciate that. BrakeSec also has a threat hunting and threat intel channel, but you definitely will get more benefit by joining Roberto's Slack on that respect. No, I know that we're good at one or two things, and we people in our community ask us to add things, and I'm like, okay, fine. But I know that there are other more focused groups out there, and this is definitely one if you're looking for IoTs and such. So yeah, definitely. So when you're not on your own Slack, are there any kind of specific Twitter handles that you like to follow, like Bad Packets or anybody like that who put out indicators of compromise or things like that?
Oh yeah. So yeah, I have some people that I like to follow. Beyond just indicators of compromise, I like to follow some of their I would say innovative ways to either like abuse a service or understand some of the I would say like hidden also telemetry in Windows environments. I have some. So one of them is Matt Graver.
Yes,
Matt Graver now with
Yes.
Red Canary.
Yep.
I'm gonna share that in there. So he's
yeah.
one of my favorites. He's one of my friends. Also, we have sometimes some cup of coffee, from time to time, because we live close to each other. So that's awesome. I it's interesting because I learn a lot more than just technical stuff with Matt. As a person, he's a great person. He's a great friend, and it's awesome to talk to him.
Awesome.
About also other things and cyber and technical stuff. The other one that I like to follow too is Lee Christensen. He works for Spectre Ops. It's interesting because when you see Lee posting something online, you know that that's gonna be good. Because he doesn't post as much. He tries to be doing his own research on his own, but when he posts something, it's just amazing. He comes up with some cool stuff.
Yep.
So we have Lee, we have Matt. Actually, I also like to follow people outside of InfoSec because I think that that's also very interesting to see how others are, working towards a similar problem. And in this case, I posted one of there, which his name is Chris Holtgraf. He's one of the main guys that push the initiatives to start sharing some notebooks out there. The Binder actually project, the Binder community, Chris is one of the ones that pushes this community a lot, and they're trying to push open free research resources, so for anybody to actually share their research for free. And I think that really speaks a lot for what he really wants to do in the community of data scientists and all that.
Okay.
So that's also another one that I follow a lot.
Very cool.
And yeah, so those are, I would say, the ones. Well, have my brother too. If you guys want to follow my brother, he's also in cyber and he's working on some cool stuff for MITRE ATT&CK actually. And he's doing some work on the data sources piece of MITRE ATT&CK, which is amazing. It's one of the pieces that a lot of people wants to use because if for those that are not aware, all the techniques in MITRE ATT&CK, most of them come with data sources, the specific recommended data sources, telemetry that you need to collect in order to at least have some visibility in those techniques. And I haven't seen anybody in the community working to enhance that data sources catalog. And my brother and I are the ones that are working, but he's the one involved 100%. And I can't wait. He's going to write a blog post soon, apparently, about that. So we'll see how that goes, but very excited about it.
That's cool. All right. So, wow, we're way over. Okay. I was thinking we were only going to get about an hour, but we're well over. So I appreciate you coming on and enjoy. No, I've learned a lot. I'm going to have to definitely go back and read some of these links in these show notes. Cause, again, I don't do this stuff for a living. So, I don't even know where to begin or how I would understand this. I mean, I understand the data format and it's very nice and it's very readable and it's very, very, very useful. I don't know where I would use it, but, there's obviously people out there are using it. So it's great to hear and great to see you helping to, with defense in the community and releasing blue team tools instead of the offensive security tools, which everybody was complaining about earlier. So.
Yeah, definitely.
Cool.
And I just want to say something, real quick, just to finish the. I just want to say thank you very much for the opportunity. Actually, it's interesting when I was, picking up my wife, from work. almost like every day I was picking her up, and I was looking for podcasts to listen to, and then I found yours podcast, and I never thought I was gonna be part of it. So that's pretty cool. So I was following you guys through just like driving to take my wife, and that was pretty cool. Kind of I remember you guys from that experience, just kind of going pick up my wife and then listen to the podcast. So that's pretty cool. Thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Appreciate that. Thank you. So, we do get that, and I'm like, wow, okay, there's so many other podcasts out there that people could be listening to except ours. But I
always think it's weird when people come up to me and they're like, "Wow, your voice sounds really familiar."
Yeah,
nice.
I've gotten that a couple of times. They're like, "Oh, I heard that. Oh, that's Brian."
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. So wow, fantastic. So you are Cyber War Dog on Twitter, and
yes.
Your handle's up in the top on our show notes.
Awesome.
Bunch of links at the bottom. Ms. Berlin, you've got a lot going on, including speaking and classes yourself on defense, dealing with the attack matrix. Maybe you could tell people where the class is happening and who needs to sign up.
Everyone needs to sign up.
Everyone needs to sign up.
So my friend Jeremy and I are teaching our we can't call it D&D, but it's D&D, defense and detection tabletop exercises at NolaCon for 2 days. So that's going to be really super fun. If you want to like combine tabletops and hands-on exercises with like also a bunch of rolling of dice.
Some IP lawyer at Wizards of the Coast, just their tingly sense. There was a great disturbance
we
in
know.
the IP
Oh, we
fools.
looked up exactly what words we can't say.
Okay.
So we don't get sued by Wizards of the Coast.
Yes.
Yeah. So I'm really excited too because our friend Null Space is 3D printing us out like custom dice rolling towers.
Oh, that's awesome. That's
fantastic. I know. One of them's Cthulhu, and I'm assuming he's just going to make other cool ones. So
they make really custom dice. Maybe you could create some custom dice for the winners.
We actually give all of our players custom dice to take as part of it. Yeah, as part of as part of the thing. They get a little bag of dice to take home. So.
Is it a full set or is it just like, deep?
Oh, no, it's a full set. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
That's a full set. Yep. So that's mid-May at NolaCon.
Oh, that's fantastic.
And then I have to fly back Saturday because my son graduates Sunday. So.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yep.
So if you're going to NolaCon, sign up for that class. It does cost though. Yeah. It's one of the costing classes.
It is. It does. Yeah. But it's totally worth it. I mean,
it's probably cheaper than a SANS course and just as useful.
It is way cheaper than a SANS course. I think it's only $12.50.
Okay.
For 2 days.
Yeah, you probably
and you get a bunch of stuff like we give you like 60 different tabletop exercises that like Jeremy actually uses at work.
Nice.
And a bunch of other stuff. So
okay. And you're doing the hackers mental health stuff.
Lots of places. Yeah. Hold on. I'll actually tell you the next like few. So next up is I'm doing a workshop at SE Village this week, and then there's the next the next 4 I'm not actually doing because I can't travel that much. B-Sides Tampa, Colonel Con, B-Sides Salt Lake City, and B-Sides Orlando.
Wow. Okay.
And then I'm going to EDUCAUSE, which is in Bellevue, Washington.
Yeah. Right up here. Yeah. Cool. Well, B-Sides Orlando, Jerry Bell, Andrew Callett, is going to be there. Andy, he's back on his feet. He's got no tape on his belly anymore.
I know. I'm so happy for him.
Me too. Yeah. So it's been a long road to recovery for him, but he had mentioned on the show, Defensive Security, which is another podcast you should go listen to, that they were going to be at B-Sides Orlando for the first time. And they're actually going to do a live show there at B-Sides Orlando. So if you are visiting, get down there and grab a seat and do the live show with them. So it's going to be good times. It's sad I'm not going to be able to make that. So Mr. Betcher, how are things with you, and the thing that I'm not sure we can talk about?
I don't know. I guess you can talk about it if you so choose, but yeah, it's going great. We are adding new stuff all the time.
Okay.
I fixed a couple bugs just yesterday, and
nice.
Ready for the next release.
Okay. So they would use your tool in coordination with the threat hunting tools to get better visibility in the environment.
Yes, of course. It will harvest logs and all that stuff.
There you go.
We also have a hunting feature too for
got competition.
So that's coming out soon.
Okay.
And you'll be able to do all kinds of hunting for files and registry keys and things like that. Okay.
Awesome. Fantastic. And Ms. Berlin, how would people find you on Twitter? I forgot to ask you that question.
That's all right. At InfoSystir, INFOSYSTIR, and InfoSec Roleplay.
And Hackers Health.
And Hackers Health, yeah.
Okay. See, I have 5, but that's on me. So
I have like 5 more.
Right.
I could keep going, but
wow. Yeah, no.
Multi-dimensional.
She is very much.
A couple of them I don't tell people about though, so I'm not going to say them on the podcast.
Roger that. All right. Mr. Betcher, if people wanted to discuss all things IR and forensic-y stuff with you, how would they do that?
Yep. Just go to the website, log-md.com, or I have a Twitter account at BetcherPwned. My last name, BOETTCHERPWNED.
Cool. All right. So now for my particulars, you can follow me on Twitter at Brian Brake. You can follow the podcast BrakeSec, BRAKESEC. I do a local meetup here in the Seattle area in Bellevue. Actually, it's more like Bellevue and Redmond area, which is near some small software company. Next month, March 4th, we're actually going to be at the Google Kirkland facility at Building D, where we're going to have a speaker. We haven't figured out which speaker that is. Hell, I might actually do it myself because I actually have a talk that I'm going to be giving at UW Tacoma at the end of the month on threat assessments and risk assessments and how there seems to be a disconnect between how PMs do it and InfoSec folks do it. And so I've had to revise my hypothesis and statement of things a couple times now. So I'm going to be at UW Tacoma giving that talk to some graduate students. I'm a guest lecturer. Oh my
nice.
God. How does that happen? How does that happen? Anyway, so one of our previous speakers here on the show, Debishri, is having me join her class to come and speak for a couple hours. So I get to teach graduate students things.
I remotely talked to a bunch of college students the other day, and only half of them had questions. I told Bill to fail the other half.
Oh, that's good. Yeah. Oh, that was at Marshall there. Yeah.
Yeah, because he's using my book to keep teaches.
That's right.
Class.
That's right.
So.
Yeah, that's right. Anyway, so BrakeSec, if you want to follow the local meetup here in Seattle, it's CSEC East, SEASECEAST on Twitter. We have a meetup. I'll be announcing the event on March 4th. We'll figure out who the speaker is, but it's going to be really awesome. Some people from Google potentially. Food and drinks and locations all going to be sponsored by Google. So it's gonna be great. I'm actually happy that they're helping out with that. So let's see. InfoSec Campout officers, Miss Berlin, Mr. Betcher, Matt Domko, Wendy Knox Everett, and Chris Brown, our new strategy officer. We're getting all of that ready to go for InfoSec Campout 2020. And if you're in Vegas at the end of March, I'm going to be speaking at the International Wireless Consortium Expo, a non-InfoSec conference on be doing a panel on IoT security. So I've got to brush up on my IoTs and all the securities and stuff. And it's a non-InfoSec conference. So it's something I wanted to do this year. They were kind enough to give me a free booth. I don't know if it's because I have a podcast and a nonprofit, but they were more than willing to give me free shit. And I was like, oh, okay. So I'm going to be flying down there for a couple of days. If you want to meet for drinks, we'll be at the Las Vegas Convention Center. We'll go have dinner or something. So yeah, there you go. Thank you to our patrons for all their support. We appreciate their help with hosting fees, paying for the Zoom that we're using to do the podcast every week. Also, goes to helping, just time and effort getting a podcast out every week, or two, that being editing and everything. I do all my own editing. We don't have anybody, it probably shows, but all the folks out there that, talk about how clean the audio is. I've had 6 years of, trying to make that work. So I'm glad everybody's happy with the quality there. We have a TPub store. You can go get a t-shirt with Miss Berlin's face on it. It still makes me cackle every time I see it. Let me see. Let me go grab that. I have a bunch of links that are in our show notes. Oh, I found out we're on Pandora. Can you believe that? We're like big time now. We're on Pandora and everything.
Yeah, we're everywhere.
Yeah, wow. You can find us on Pandora, TuneIn Radio, LinkedIn. I have it on LinkedIn, but Player.fm, Stitcher, Spotify, iTunes. Please feel free to leave feedback on any of those. That way we can get some more help with that. tpublic.com/user/BDS podcast, and you can go get t-shirts, mugs, stickers, anything you want with our logo on it. And Roberto,
thank you. Netflix show.
I need a Netflix show.
We're not that entertaining.
No. I'm almost certain that Audible will pick us up at some point in the future. So there's literally no place where you can't find us. iHeartRadio, SoundCloud. I mean, we're everywhere. So. The Slack, we have a huge Slack presence, not as big obviously as Roberto's. His is more awesome than ours. So,
oh man.
Yeah. So anyway,
we can share the love. I think we can share the love.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
Scalp people out of the.
Yeah. Come over and join us. We have cookies. No. So,
nice.
If you're interested in joining our Slack after you've joined Roberto's thread hunting Slack, you can send us a DM to BrakeSec on Twitter, or you can send us an email to bds.podcast@gmail.com, and we'll let you in, assuming you're not a robot. So, we have moderation. Oh, crap. I almost forgot. Oh my God. Oh, so we have book club. Book club's starting up again. One of our moderators, Dave Sybuck, he wanted me to read this bit just so that I didn't forget. Book club is going to start on the 24th of February, which is next week. According to this, I'm going to have to mention that on part 1 as well. It started this week on the 24th at 10 p.m. Eastern time. That's Eastern U.S. time, which is 7 p.m. Pacific. Like 4 a.m. UK time. But JB, who's another one of our moderators, is going to do the EMEA version, so Europe, Middle East, and Asia version. It's usually on Saturday mornings, I believe, around that time frame, US time, so that way everybody can get involved. We are going to be reading Hands-On AWS Pen Testing with Kali Linux by Ben Caudill and... it says Gilbert. I think that's his last name. So the idea is to get the book, start reading, and get as far into the book as you can, because there's going to be some exercises and things that they plan on getting set up, VirtualBox and all that other stuff, because there's going to be some work that you're going to have to do for that. So please grab the book. It's from Pact Publishing, and we'll have a link in the show notes for that as well. So. Cool. That was it for everybody here at Breaking Down Security this week. We're going to be back in a couple weeks with a new episode. Until then, be kind to one another. Take care of yourself, because you're the only you have. And we'll talk to you again soon.
Bye-bye.
See ya.
All right. Take care, guys. Thank you. Bye.